Coming up next, aircraft carrier U.S.S. Yorktown and its rich history.
Hi, I'm Mike Lech, and welcome to Adventures in Scale Modeling. There's a large group of modelers especially interested in military history. The exact replicas of the famous aircraft and naval ships provide a fascinating challenge to the modeler historian. Today we're at the site of the U.S.S. Yorktown, a small vessel in comparison to the modern-day aircraft carrier. However, ships like the Yorktown and her sisters have had more of an impact on naval strategy than any other type of ship on the high sea. Having this opportunity to review the prototype before we begin the model is fantastic. Anything we can learn about the prototype models we build, the more we can closely duplicate them. We're going to learn more about the U.S.S. Yorktown later on in today's show. But right now, let's go to the museum and begin building this historic aircraft carrier. Some models we build complement one another. For instance, the F-14 on display here could have actually flown off the flight deck of the aircraft carrier we're building today. By choosing the appropriate scales, we can display models together very effectively. Model ships can appear intimidating to us, but Bill Devins, our master model maker, is downstairs in the museum workshop ready to put our mind at ease when working with these type of vessels. Let's go downstairs and join him as we begin building the U.S.S. Yorktown. The U.S.S. Yorktown is one of those exciting models we get to paint and assemble today. Bill, what kind of progress are you making on the Yorktown?
Well, Mike, I've just about got this hull ready to paint with the red waterline color. And what we're going to do is put some masking tape on here to make sure we get a nice sharp edge to that waterline.
Well, can I give you a hand?
Sure, but let's wash those hands first.
Well, what do I have to wash my hands for? We're not going to do any painting just yet.
Well, we want to get all the oil and grease from your hands off and take away all that sanding dirt, because any of the imperfections that were on your hand will get transferred to the model. They'll wind up on the masking tape, and they'll eventually wind up in our paint finish, and we don't want to see that.
I see your point. So we don't want to wash our hands. I mean, we want to wash our hands as often as we can.
That's right, especially when you're getting down to the finishing operations.
All right, what are we going over to the small workbench for?
Okay, we're going to need a few supplies here. We've got the steel straight edge. You can grab the masking tape, and I'll take this piece of glass over.
Now, Bill, I notice you have the masking tape down on a piece of glass. What are you going to do there?
Okay, well, we want to get a nice sharp edge on the masking tape, Mike.
Well, I don't understand, Bill. There's an edge already on the masking tape.
Right, but the edge here really isn't all that sharp. You can see that it's already picked up a lot of dirt and gunk just from being on the edge. And it's kind of rolled back, and it really isn't the proper way of applying the finish to your model.
Ah, I see your point. So what are we going to do?
So what we're going to do here is put a piece of tape right on the glass.
Okay.
And cut our own sharp edge.
You use the hobby knife?
Right.
All right.
And steel ruler so that we get a nice sharp edge here. If you use a wooden ruler, your hobby knife will cut right into it. So.
Okay. So you're just going to cut right through it?
Now we're just going to cut right through it. And the point of the knife won't go through the glass and it won't scratch it. But we should cut
yes, I see.
right through the layer of tape.
So now what do we do?
Now when we peel it off, we should have a nice clean edge to use. Here you go, Mike.
Let me see what we got here. Let me grab that. Yeah, you know, Bill, you're right. That really is a nice, sharp edge. What happens if we just put it down just like that?
Well, if we put it down like that, the edge kind of rolls up, and you can see the dirt that's already picked up on the edge, and that's going to make it not stick too well to the model, and therefore paint's going to run underneath it.
Oh, so now, why do we put it on the glass in lieu of the table?
Well, if you notice, we don't have any masking tape glue stuck to the glass. Even though we've pulled it off here, we've stuck it down and pulled it off. The glass won't take away the adhesion of the tape, so it's still sticky.
So we keep the property of the stickiness, so we put it on the glass. All right, now what do I do next?
Now what you want to do is continue on that line. You can follow the engraved line that they have on there.
I'm going to fumble with my tape here. This is the first time I'm doing this. This is exciting. Now, what do I do?
Okay, I hope you remembered which edge was the good edge.
I do, I do.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sticking it down here.
Stick that down and follow and make sure you get your edge nice and tight.
Oh, all right. Boy, you have to really have some patience with this stuff, don't you?
Well, all modeling you need a little bit of patience for, but the finished product is usually worth it.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, Bill, I see a question arriving here. We have the line down real nice, and I come around the edge of the boat here. But when I spray paint this model, what stops the spray paint from going up to the top there?
Oh, okay, I see. Yes, we don't want the superstructure of the model red, but
what do we do?
We haven't finished masking yet, Mike.
Okay, so what do we do first?
What we're going to do, see, once we've got our sharp edge on, that's the line that we're concerned about. Now, we can take our regular masking tape.
Okay. We don't have to cut this anymore?
We don't have to cut this anymore. We can take a good long strip of it here. Sometimes it helps if you just stick one edge down on the table there. And that won't roll up on you. And what you want to do is follow along the line, the back edge of your old tape.
Ah, I see.
Just to cover up more of the model. Now, depending on how large the model is, you might want to do this process with all masking tape. But this Yorktown's got a pretty big hull, and we're going to be doing a lot of painting, so...
Should I just cut this down here with a knife?
Right, you can just snip that off.
All right, what are you going to do with the paper now?
And we can hide some of the rest of this by taping a piece of paper down to our masking tape here.
I'm really caught up here. Okay.
You're really wrapped up in this project, Mike.
Yes, with masking tape. Now, Bill, do we always use masking tape only, or can we use any other kind of tape?
Well, we can use, we usually use masking tape to get those straight lines. But for holding the paper on and for other types of less than critical masking, you can use Scotch tape. Okay,
like we could use Scotch tape now with the paper.
Right, we could tape the paper down with Scotch tape and hold that in. In fact, some of the, where the paper overlaps here, for instance, you're going to want to Scotch tape it together because spray paint is notoriously powerful, and when you're spraying in here, it will lift this paper up and spray your model underneath.
Well, this certainly is taking a long time to complete this.
That's true. It's a tedious job, but we don't, like I said, we don't want the paint to get in there and ruin the finish.
Where are you going?
But I happen to have a hull over here that we've got all ready to go. So
let's see what you got there. Oh, you have the...
You see, I've got this papered out with some Scotch tape, and I've got our sharp edge line.
You have the Scotch tape between the paper so it doesn't go up underneath, and there's the other part of the model. But Bill, you know, I noticed that you have, on this hull, we don't have any parts, but on the other hull we do. Now, what's the situation here?
Okay. While I was masking this model, I didn't want to take a risk of breaking these parts off. You saw how wrapped up we got in the tape.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're part of the lower hull of the Yorktown, and they're going to be painted red the same way the rest of the hull is. So after we got the masking tape on, I've glued down the propeller shafts and their supports.
That's because they're all going to be one
color.
They're
all going to be red also. So we want to sub-assemble the model, and all the parts that want to be red on the finished model we want to put on before we actually do the spraying.
All right, well, I'm anxious to get started. What's our next step?
Okay.
Spray painting?
I think we can clean off the workbench here and get right down to spray painting.
All right. This is the part I come to see. Let's see what you got. Is this the spray paint we're going to use?
Okay, right. That's the flat red that we're going to use for the hull bottom.
Okay, well, I want to see you do it, buddy.
And
you're the expert here. Oh, so you hold on. That paper also protects your arms.
Right. You'll probably get some on your arm, but we want to remember that we want to spray the...
All right, I'm going to get out of your way here.
Want to spray over the table and preferably have some newspaper down or
my workbench
your workbench. But you don't want to go and spray your mother's kitchen table because she won't let you build any more models.
Or the wife's coffee table, for that matter.
You better be sure. Now, when you spray paint, you want to start behind the model and spray across it. You don't want to start and stop in the middle of the model because that's when you
Did you shake that can up?
Yep, I shook this can up. We're going to shake it every few seconds to make sure that paint's well mixed in
agitation going, doesn't it?
Right. Okay, let's see what we got here.
Whoa, that is a beautiful looking red. Bill, you painted the instruction sheet.
Wow. We can still see it, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, now that's what we want to do, and we're going to roll the model over and paint the next pass.
That's really cool. Let me give it a try.
Maybe you want to take a shot.
Yeah, I do. This is a fun job here.
Get under there, turn it around. Maybe you can face it the other way. That's it.
Okay, now I just start from, how far back should I do it?
Well, you should be back about 10 or 12 inches. Make sure now you start beyond the bow of the model and then...
Oh, beyond the bottom?
Right, and then come right across it. Try to do it in one pass there. And
like this?
Right. That's fine. Now get in a few passes right in here, because some of these, if you spray from the same angle all the time, the shadows that are created by these pieces will show up on the plastic. So you want to come in at a different angle to cover up. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And get in underneath some of those things.
Boy, the model's looking great here.
Now I see a spot in the bow that we missed.
Okay, why don't you get it here? Well, only the expert would kit a piece like this.
We got a couple of spots that are still gray there.
So I got to get this tail?
Yep, get that right in there, and a couple other spots.
Okay.
And that should look pretty good.
Boy, it does look good. Bill, tell me a little bit about the overspray here. I mean, how safe is it to be down here with the spray paint?
Well, we want to spray paint in a well-ventilated area, because this stuff, red in particular, will settle around all over, and you'll breathe it up into your nose and stuff. So you want to make sure you've got a well-ventilated area when you're spray painting.
Now, how long does something like this take to dry?
You should let this dry maybe for 12 hours to 24 hours. I prefer overnight, so that you're not anxious, over-anxious, and getting your fingerprints in your nicely painted hull.
Okay, well, Bill, while you continue to spray paint the model and set the parts aside to dry, why don't we go take a look at the U.S.S. Yorktown in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm here on the flight deck of the U.S.S. Yorktown, where I'm going to spend some time talking to Dr. Clark Reynolds, historian of Patriots Point's Maritime and Naval Museum here in Charleston, South Carolina. Dr. Reynolds, welcome to Adventures in Scale Modeling.
Thank you.
Dr. Reynolds, I understand that this is not the very first Yorktown.
Right. This is the second carrier Yorktown. The first one was sunk at the Battle of Midway early in World War II, and as is the tradition of all navies, a new ship was named after the old one as a tribute and to continue the tradition.
Well, did the design change much from the first to the second?
Not a heck of a lot. Carriers were so new then. This is number 10, the new one. The old one was number 5, so it was still a pretty rudimentary design.
Well, can you explain to us in more general layman terms, aircraft carrier? What is it?
Aircraft carrier is a floating airfield at sea, so that everything in the crew, the ship's company, about 3,000 men back in World War II, operated to serve the air group, which is now called an air wing, about another 600 fellows, to keep the plane service, keep them in flying condition, and always, above all, to keep the deck operable. If there were bomb hits or something, everything would have to be repaired before the planes came home and so forth.
Now, I understand there's something special about this deck. It was wood, then it was covered. What was the differences and why so?
Well, the American policy in building carriers was to have wooden decks so that if a bomb went through, it would hit on the steel down on the hangar deck. Then timbers could be brought up and the flight deck restored so it would be operating to bring the planes home, and then they could repair the damage below later. Teak was used because that's the only wood that doesn't get slippery when it's wet. And that way the men could run around on a deck that's got not only water on it, but also oil and gas and stuff from servicing the planes. So you had better traction for both the men running around on the deck and for the planes once they hit the deck and grabbed the arresting wire. And then when they went off, they had to have good traction also. But it's still a teak deck. They've sprayed on some anti-skid material, but other than that, it's still the same as during the war. Now,
an aircraft carrier, I noticed from down below, has all of the controls or the main housing to one side. Didn't the ship ever just fall over?
Well, of course, naval architecture is a very precise science, and that's what they have to come up with, is to balance the weight, all considerations, so that she moves on an even keel and is very seaworthy. So here we have the island superstructure, is what they call it, off to the starboard or the right side, leaving maximum area for wing spread of the larger planes to take off. And this is the control tower, just like a modern airport, and here's the airstrip, you might say, and everything was worked out precisely so that nothing fell over unless you got a bomb or a torpedo hitting one side, and then even then you would counterflood on the other side to maintain buoyancy.
That is really interesting, but one of the interesting things that I've noticed on the ships are these scoreboards. What are these? Explain to me, please.
Okay, the scoreboard is whenever an air group was on board, or an air wing today they call them, they would keep a record of victories in battle, and so that you had Japanese flags, each one symbolized a Japanese plane shot down in combat, in the air, in a dogfight. And 5 of these, if one fella shot down 5 or more, he was rated as an ace, which was the highest distinction a fighter pilot could have. The sitting ducks simply represented planes that were parked on the ground that were shot up when they were strafed or bombed by the planes. They were sitting ducks, in other words. And then ships hit. The ones that are shown sinking were the ones that were actually confirmed by gun camera shots that they were sunk. And the ones with the explosion on there merely shows they were damaged by bomb hits. So this is the total record of Air Group 3, which was on board during the invasion of the Philippine Islands and attacks in the South China Sea in late 1944 and early 1945.
Well, Dr. Reynolds, what is the significance of having the aircraft carrier Yorktown as a museum piece open to the public?
The Yorktown here at Patriots Point is the only museum in the country that represents, recreates actually the way life is and was at sea on an aircraft carrier. The carrier during World War II became the queen of the fleet, which it is today, and this is a living memory, a testimonial to the men who served and died in that great war. After all, we built about 150 carriers during the war, which is amazing, and also it shows what the U.S. Navy basically is about today.
Well, Dr. Reynolds, thanks a lot for coming on to the show and talking with us today. Now when we get back to our museum to finish our Yorktown, we'll be able to understand more about its history and its design. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That was an exciting trip to the U.S.S. Yorktown. I had no idea the aircraft carrier is that large. Bill, what kind of progress are you making?
Okay, Michael, we've got our model here, and what we're going to do today is some reverse masking.
Now, how do you explain reverse masking?
Well, we've got these yellow stripes that we want to paint on a dark brown deck.
Yeah, but your whole deck is yellow.
Well, if we try to paint the yellow over the dark brown, we're going to need a lot of yellow paint to cover up that brown, and we're going to have to mask each stripe from both sides.
Okay, so what do we do?
It's going to take a lot of tape. So what we're going to do is paint the deck yellow first.
Okay.
And then you can see here I'm applying some colored masking tape so you can see it.
All right, because it usually doesn't come red, does it?
No. But what we're going to do is put the colored masking tape right on here.
Now, Bill, how did you know that those stripes go on there like that, the configuration of those stripes?
Okay, well, I did some research, Mike. I went to the library and found a picture of the Yorktown as she looked in 1939 before they camouflaged her for the war.
Oh, I see. So you can find some information on how the boat looks in different stages of its period.
Right.
Okay, now what are you going to do now?
Okay, now we've got the yellow stripes masked off. On the finished model, what you see is red here is going to come out yellow. And what we need to do now is paint the rest of the deck brown.
Okay, what do we do?
So this is your favorite part of the show, so I guess I'll let you take that.
All right, where's my brown?
You got your spray paint right there, and remember, start behind the model and spray across it.
Okay. Is it shook up for me enough?
Yep, you're ready to go.
Okay, now how do I do it without spraying the whole model?
Well, just spray half of it now, Mike, so you'll be able to handle one half of it and keep it dry.
Now where do I start back?
Spray across the back and maybe you can go across. That's fine.
Okay.
That's good. You get some brown on there, and the first coat will seal that tape on there, and hopefully the brown won't seep in underneath the tape.
All right.
Another way to prevent the tape from seeping, having paint seep under it, is to repaint the deck. Yeah, that looks good, Mike.
Should I get the sides good?
No, because we're not going to actually need them brown. Only the top deck we're going to need.
Okay, now what do I do?
Pretty good. Okay, put that aside to dry.
All right.
And I've got one over here.
You have some more masking tape on it, Bill.
That's right, because the rest of the non-wood parts of the aircraft carrier now, the metal parts are all going to be colored light gray.
So what do we do? When this dries, what do we...
When this dries, what we're going to do is put more paper and masking over it to cover up the parts that are going to remain brown, so that we leave the galleries and the metal deck parts to be sprayed gray.
At this point, Bill, how many layers of masking tape do we have on here?
Okay, we've got 2 layers on here already. And for the 3 colors, that's how many we're going to need. Now, I've painted this side already.
All right.
With the gray. And what we're going to do is have you take that paper and mask off, and let's see what it looks like underneath.
All right, why don't you take the first part off, because I'm new to this.
All right. Now, here's our brown underneath here.
Okay.
And we'll just start peeling up some of this tape and see if the yellow
Oh,
comes
yes.
off with it. Now you can see our yellow.
Let me take some more of the. Let me take some off here now.
Yeah,
this
go ahead, Mike.
This really makes it look exciting because you're going to see the different colors.
There you go. And let's see, I'll follow you with this.
Okay. All right. All right.
Okay. There you go.
That is absolutely wonderful, Bill.
And now you see that by using this technique, we've saved a lot of time with painting that yellow on over on top of the dark brown.
You know what's important? Those stripes really pop off of it. This is a great technique. It just takes a lot of time and masking off. All right, what's our next step?
Well, because it does take a lot of time and we need to mask a lot of the model, let's go on to the island of the aircraft carrier.
Well, let me see. What do you have here?
Okay, now the island during the 1939 period was painted with a big Y so that the ship could be identified as the Yorktown from a distance.
Yeah, well, you have the Y on here, but if we're going to paint it a different color, isn't it going to get everywhere?
No, what we're going to do is brush paint that on, Mike, because we don't want to have to mask the whole island off just for that small area. So we don't really need the spray can.
So what do you have there?
So here I've got some water-based acrylic paint.
This is just, it just says night black. Is it a special color?
Well, this is just flat black, and that's the color that the Y is going to be painted.
All right, well, let me set this down here so we get a good hand on it. Are you going to hold it in the air like that?
Yeah, we'll just get some
paint
on our brush here.
Do I need to hand it to you? All right.
And as long as we keep inside of the outside line of the tape, see, we can blob over there, and that should come out to be a straight line.
Oh, so here's something. We don't always have to spray paint when we're using mask.
No, we can paint with the brush over it.
Let me give it a try.
Sure, give that a shot there, Mike.
Oh, can you hand me the paint, Bill?
There you go.
All right. Just
not too much there.
Take off a lot of paint.
And just finish up the top of that Y.
Boy, this, I'll tell you, you know what's important about this masking, Bill, is I'm not a very steady guy with a paintbrush here. So I can go over top. It's not gonna hurt. No,
and that should come out with a straight line. Now, a way to guarantee that the line stays straight, Mike, so that the paint doesn't leak under when we hand paint a color over it, is to spray the model after we put the tape on. We can spray the model with a clear coat to seal the tape on, or we can spray it with the same color that we already have on underneath here.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
We could have painted the deck yellow again to seal that tape on. That way any paint that leaks under the tape is going to be yellow, which is the color we want under there anyway.
All right, how do I clean my brush here?
Okay, we'll just clean the brush in the water. That's the beauty of these acrylic paints.
Well, Bill, do you use the brush technique for any other masking jobs around here?
Yes, Mike. As a matter of fact, you remember that hole that we painted last time?
Yes.
We got the red water line on it.
Oh,
and now to put the black dividing line between the red and the gray, I've taken an additional piece of cut masking tape and put that on so that we define our black line. And then I just painted in here. And you can see I didn't matter if I slopped on the tape, because hopefully underneath we're going to have a nice sharp masked line.
Well, I see you have the tape here on the edge here. Is there a reason for having the little tails?
Yeah, that's just so we can grab it easier and find it after we've done our painting. So why don't you...
so I can pull it off now?
Give those tails a pull and let's see what we got.
One at a time, Bill? Two at a time?
No, take them both at the same time.
Now, oh, look at that. That line is absolutely perfectly straight. Bill, does it matter how fast these tapes come off?
No, not really, Mike. If the paint's dry, we shouldn't have a real problem.
It is pretty dry here. It really looks great.
All right.
That's impressive, Bill. That is very impressive. Are we going to get the same results with our tower?
I hope so. Let's take a look.
Well, let's see what we have there. That paint, is it dry by now?
Yeah, this acrylic paint that we're using, one of the advantages of it, Mike, is that it's water-based and it dries pretty fast. So I think we can take a chance and peel this off. If you want to give me a hand down there on the bottom. Let's see if we got a nice sharp edge on that, too. Here, why don't you grab that side?
Okay.
See what we got here.
Bill, tell me this. Whenever we pull this up like this, if we have a black paint underneath or anything, can we repair that?
Yeah, Mike, what you can do is take a wooden toothpick and cut it off at an angle to make sort of a little chisel, and you can kind of peel that paint up.
Just chisel away the paint?
Yeah, use something like wood so that it doesn't damage the underneath paint. If you use your hobby knife blade, you probably scratch through the original paint layer too, and you'll mess up your finish even worse.
You know, Bill, I can't help but notice it takes an awful lot of time to mask this stuff, as well as wait for the paint to dry and remask stuff.
Mike, it does take a lot of time, And usually it's worth it, though, in the finished product. Now, I have
Wow,
your finished
look at
Yorktown
that.
over here. This is the one that you're going to put in your museum.
That's great. Look at this water line. And the Y is perfect. And the deck. Bill, those stripes just pop right off that deck. This is great. It's going to be an exquisite model for the transportation exhibit upstairs. Thanks a lot.
I really appreciate that, Mike, and it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.